Dear brothers and sisters, we celebrate today the seventh Sunday in ordinary time. And the gospel of today is very challenging. Jesus is asking us to love our enemies, to do good to those who hate us, to bless those who curse us, to pray for those who mistreat us. How this can be possible? Dear brothers and sisters, I have many siblings, cousins, and friends. I do love them, but I don't necessarily pray for them. So if I can forget to pray for my beloved ones, so do not ask me to pray for my enemies. And yet, that is what Jesus is asking us today. How can we understand this? Because those two words, love and enemies, are opposite. They don't necessarily go together. Love your enemies is a kind of antinomy in philosophy, I would say, or a paradox. Because love excludes enemies, and enemies excludes love. But why did Jesus put those two words together, asking us to love our enemies? How can we understand that? Dear brothers and sisters, Jesus, by putting those two opposite words together, is inviting us to understand this truth that where there is love, there is no enemy. And where there are enemies, there is no love. Because when we really love, we will not have enemies. That is what Jesus wants us to know. He's just inviting us that we could not have enemies in our lives when we do love others. Like the first reading today, David had an opportunity to kill his enemy, Saul, who was sleeping with all his soldiers. But David refused to kill him, to harm him, because he saw in Saul the anointed one of God, the one created in the image and likeness of God. That's why he refused to harm him. He loved him even though he was his enemy. So to love and avoid enemies requires mercy, forgiveness. Like God himself is kind and merciful. Jesus died on the cross, rose again, and he forgets even those who crucified him. Where there is love, there is no enemy. Where there are enemies, there is no love. And dear brothers and sisters, Jesus in the same gospel of today continues to challenge us with that golden rule He said to us, do to others as you would have them do to you. And I know, dear brothers and sisters, that many of us enjoy that golden rule. But if we don't pay attention, dear brothers and sisters, this golden rule can lead us to a kind of selfishness and stand for what I can call an ethics of reciprocity. I will do good only to those who can pay me back. That is why a philosopher like Immanuel Kant criticized that golden rule. For him, that golden rule seems to be selfish, because I do good only to those who can do the same to me. And Immanuel Kant proposed his categorical imperative that seems to be universal. I do good because that is my duty as a human being, as a rational being. My duty is to do good. And when I do so, I'm doing just by respect of moral law within me. I will do my good regardless of the outcome, without interest. But all good I do is just by duty, for respect of moral law. And Jesus was aware of that, the risk of selfishness in the golden rule. That's why he added, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Because sinners do the same. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Sinners do the same. If you lend money to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Because even sinners do the same. I will not give money just to those who can pay me back. But it is my duty to help those in need. That is why Jesus continues to say to love our enemies and to do good to them. Where there is love, there is no enemies. Where there are enemies, there is no love, dear brothers and sisters. And Jesus continues asking us, stop judging and you will not be judged. Stop condemning and you will not be condemned. Dear brothers and sisters, when we do good only to those who can do good to us, we will be judging others just because if they can do good to us or not. And ourselves will be like the unit of measure of goodness. But Jesus is asking to stop that kind of judgment. We should not be the unit of measurement of God. Because, dear brothers and sisters, if I take myself as the unit of measure, I can compare myself to a murderer. I will say, oh, okay, I'm good than him. Of course. But dear brothers and sisters, if I compare myself to Jesus, who is our unit of measure, That is why I will realize myself that I'm just a sinner. Yes, a redeemer sinner, but still in the journey toward holiness. And that journey requires humility.